5:07 p.m. On New Year's Eve, my phone buzzed once short, sharp, like someone calling from a room full of people and hoping nobody notices. The screen flashed. Adrian Tran, my son. I answered with a smile I didn't get to use. "Dad," he said immediately, voice tight, low. "Don't come here." I froze, with a dish towel in my hand, staring at the table I'd set out of habit, 3 plates, 3 forks, 1 extra napkin for a kid who always spilled. "What did you just say?" I asked. There was music in the background. Laughter. Glasses clinking. The sound of a party already in motion. Adrian exhaled hard. "Kristen and her family, they don't like it when you show up. You make things awkward." "Awkward," I repeated. My throat went dry. "On New Year's Eve, in your house, with my grandson in it." "Please," he said, like he'd practiced the word. "Just stay home. I'll come by later." "Later when?" I asked. "After midnight," he said quickly. Then softer, like someone was standing right next to him. "Just don't come, Dad." I let the silence hang for half a second, then asked the only question that mattered. "Do you remember who raised you until you turned 18? That line hit him. I heard it in the pause, too long, too guilty. "Dad," he started. "Answer me," I said, not loud, not angry, just steady. He didn't answer. He couldn't. And then he did the one thing that hurt more than any insult. He ended the call. No Happy New Year. No love you. Just dead air. I stood there a moment, staring at my kitchen as if it belonged to someone else. Then I walked to the living room cabinet, pulled out a small taped box I'd been saving for tonight, and slid it into my bag. I didn't text. I didn't call back. I grabbed my coat and keys and left. If my son wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I was done being convenient. But my grandson wasn't convenient. He was family. 17 minutes later, I turned into Adrian's neighborhood, lights everywhere. Snow piled along the curbs, windows glowing warm like everyone in the world had a place to be. Adrian's driveway was packed with expensive cars, the kind of cars people buy when they want their neighbors to notice. I stepped out into the cold, and the front door opened before I could knock. Victor Hale, Kristen's father, filled the doorway. Tall, broad, expensive sweater. The calm confidence of a man who assumes every room belongs to him. He didn't say hello. He looked me up and down and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to see my son," I said. "And my grandson." "It's New Year's Eve." Behind him, Diane Hale, Kristen's mother, appeared with a smile so practiced it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Calvin," she said brightly. "We have guests." Past their shoulders, I could see the living room. People laughing, drinks in hand, a huge tree, music loud enough to drown out honesty. I spotted Mason, a neighbor I'd met once, and 2 couples I didn't know at all. And then I saw my son. Adrian stood near the kitchen entrance, shoulders tight, eyes flicking between me and Victor, like he was measuring the distance to safety. Kristen Hale Tran, in a red dress that looked like it belonged in a magazine, stepped close to him. She didn't greet me. She leaned into Adrian's ear and whispered not quite quiet enough. "I told you he'd show up." Adrian didn't contradict her. He just stared at the floor. "May I come in?" I asked, looking straight at Adrian. Victor stepped aside like he was doing me a favor. I walked in and hung my own coat because nobody offered. I kept my bag close, box inside, heart heavier than it should have been for a holiday. Then a small body slammed into my waist. Jackson Tran, 10, my grandson, wrapped his arms around me like he'd been holding his breath all night. He looked up with eyes that were trying to be brave and failing. "Grandpa," he said loudly, perfectly normal for anyone watching. But when he leaned in, his voice dropped into my ear like a secret he couldn't afford to keep. "Don't drink anything they give you." My stomach tightened. "Jackson." He shook his head once, small and urgent, then stepped back fast, as if being too close to me was dangerous. A laugh burst from behind my shoulder. Kyle Hale, Kristen's brother, drifted past with his phone raised like he was filming family memories. The lens tracked me, without shame. "Wow," he said, grinning. "You actually came." Bold move. His eyes dropped to my bag. "What'd you bring? A lecture?" I ignored him and followed everyone toward the dining room, where a long table was set like a staged photo. My seat was placed far from Adrian and directly beside Kyle, close enough for his phone to catch every blink. Victor stood at the head of the table and lifted his glass. Before we count down tonight, he said, I want to say something about family, about stability, about doing things the right way. People nodded like they understood. Kristen smiled. Diane watched me like a nurse assessing a patient. Adrian sat stiff, hands under the table. Victor set a black leather folder in front of me. A pen rested on top, positioned perfectly, like the table had been built for it. Calvin, Victor said smoothly, we just need you to sign something small tonight. One signature, for everyone's peace. I didn't touch the pen. I looked at my son. Adrian's mouth opened, closed. Then he whispered, Dad, just sign it, please. Let's keep it calm. Jackson's hand found my sleeve under the table, trembling. And then I heard Victor lean toward Adrian, voice low, meant to be private. But the room had gone quiet enough that truth slipped through. Midnight, Victor said. Make him sign at midnight. One signature, that's all. I turned my head slowly toward the clock on the wall. 8:43 p.m. A little over 3 hours left. 3 hours in a house full of smiling strangers, cameras, alcohol, and a folder waiting for my name while my grandson stood beside me, warning me not to take a single sip. I didn't argue in that moment. Arguing was what they wanted, something loud, ugly, easy to clip and replay. So I kept my face calm and my hands off the pen. But sitting there, with that folder in front of me and my son looking past me instead of at me, I couldn't ignore the simple truth. This wasn't a holiday dinner. It was a setup, and it was built on two things I'd spent my life protecting. I raised Adrian alone. His mother died when he was little, and after the funeral, there was no pause button. Rent still came. Bills still came. A kid still needed breakfast. School clothes. A ride to practice. Someone to show up. I worked mornings, nights, weekends, whatever kept food in the fridge and Adrian on track. I didn't do it for applause. I did it because that's what a father does when he's the only parent left standing. By the time Adrian turned 18, he had a diploma, a driver's license, and a future. He also had something else, a home he could always come back to. I'd promised him that, and I meant it. That home, the one Victor's family talked about like it was a piece on a chessboard, wasn't some random property I picked up. It was family legacy. My mother left it to me, and she was specific about one thing. The house stays in the family. Not family, as in whoever marries in and starts calling the shots, family, as in blood, history, and the people who built their lives inside those walls. Every scratch on the staircase, every nail in the backyard fence, every dent in the kitchen table, those were years. Those were memories. That house wasn't money to me. It was proof I'd done my job as a father. The first time Kristen's parents visited, they admired the neighborhood the way people admire something they plan to buy later. Then the questions started, soft and polite at first. What's the house worth? Is it paid off? Have you updated your will? Do you have power of attorney paperwork? Wouldn't it be smarter to simplify your assets as you get older? I laughed those questions off for a long time. I told myself it was just how wealthy people talked. Everything a plan. Everything a file folder. But tonight, with a pen placed like a trap and a deadline set for midnight, it finally clicked. They weren't making small talk. They were taking measurements. And if they could get my signature under the right pressure, alcohol, witnesses, cameras, my own son begging me to keep it calm, they wouldn't just take the house, they'd take my place in my grandson's life, too. Victor didn't push the folder again right away. He didn't have to. He knew it sat there like a weight in the middle of the table, forcing everyone to look at me like I was the problem. He lifted his glass and smiled at the room. Let's eat, he said, like he was hosting a charity event. We've got a big night ahead. The first trap wasn't paperwork. It was humiliation, clean, controlled, and public. Diane leaned toward me with her soft voice and sharp eyes. Calvin, remind me, she said. What did you do for work again? I kept my answer simple. I taught high school. I'm retired. Kyle snorted, loud enough for the table to hear. A teacher, he repeated, as if it explained everything wrong with me. He turned his phone slightly, framing my face. Makes sense. You people love rules. Victor chuckled politely. Kristen smiled like she hadn't heard. Adrian stared at his plate. Diane continued, still sweet. It must be hard, living alone in that older house, stairs, winter, maintenance. I worry about older people falling or forgetting things. She tilted her head. Do you ever lose track? Medications? Appointments? It was a gentle way to call me unstable, to plant the idea in front of witnesses before anything even happened. I don't forget, I said. And I don't need managing. Victor lifted a hand. No one's saying that, he lied smoothly. We just care about safety. Kyle leaned back in his chair like he was watching a show. Yeah, Grandpa, he said, grinning. We're just worried you'll wander off and get lost. A couple of guests laughed small, awkward laughs, the kind people make when they don't want to be the only one uncomfortable. Adrian finally glanced up, but it wasn't to defend me. It was to check Victor's face, like he needed permission to breathe. I swallowed the anger and kept my voice even. Can we eat? Victor nodded. Of course. Dinner started, but it wasn't dinner. It was a performance. Kristen kept the conversation moving. Sales, vacations, renovations, anything that sounded expensive and harmless. Victor asked guests about investments. Diane complimented people's jewelry. And every time I spoke, Kyle adjusted his phone as if my mouth was the main event. Then came the second trap, the drink. Diane rose with a bottle of red wine and began pouring for everyone without asking. When she reached me, she didn't pause. She poured generously, filling the glass higher than anyone else's. There, she said, setting it down in front of me. A little warmth. It's New Year's Eve. I'm fine with water, I replied. Kyle laughed. Water? He lifted his own glass. Come on, one drink won't kill you. Jackson's knee bumped mine under the table, one quick warning. His face stayed neutral, but his eyes were wide. I pushed the wineglass slightly away. I'm not drinking tonight. Kristen's smile tightened. Dad, she said, using the word like it tasted bad. It's a celebration. It's also a drive home, I said. Kyle waved his hand. We'll call you a ride. You don't need to drive, just drink. The pressure didn't feel like holiday cheer. It felt like they wanted me altered. Slower, sloppier, easier to paint with whatever story they'd already written. Adrian finally spoke, quiet and strained. Dad, just have one, please. I looked at him. You want me to drink? Or you want them to stop watching you? His jaw flexed. He didn't answer. Diane leaned closer. Calvin, you're being difficult. You don't want people thinking you're unstable, do you? There it was unstable. Not said as an insult, said as a warning. I didn't take the bait. I picked up my water instead and took a sip. Slow, deliberate, making sure Kyle's camera caught how steady my hands were. Victor's smile faded by half an inch. He was running out of easy options. So he moved to the third trap. The real one. He slid the black folder toward me again, gentle as a priest offering a Bible. The pen waited on top like it was part of the table setting. Calvin, he said, lowering his voice into something that sounded reasonable. We can stop circling this. It's one signature. Then we can all enjoy the night. Enjoy. As if my refusal was the reason the air felt poisoned. I didn't touch the pen. What is it? I asked. A family agreement, Victor said. Asset protection, health decisions, routine things. Kyle leaned forward, phone lifted higher. Just sign it, man. Don't be dramatic. Diane added, It's for Adrian and Jackson. Isn't that what you want? To help your son? Kristen watched me with that cold patience wealthy people have when they assume time will break you. If you love your family, she said, you'll sign. They were pulling in every direction at once, guilt, shame, obligation, trying to push me into a single corner where the only exit was my name on paper. I opened the folder. The first page had a friendly title, something like Family Asset Protection Agreement, the kind of phrase designed to calm people who don't read fine print. I read anyway. 2 lines in, I saw my home address typed in black letters like a target. I flipped to the next section. Transfer of management rights. That was the phrase. Not help, not support, transfer. I kept turning pages. Medical power of attorney. Not in case of emergency. Not after evaluation. Immediate authority the moment I signed. Then the part that made my throat tighten. Consent to capacity evaluation. Consent for someone else to question whether I was mentally fit. A doorway. A weapon. I closed the folder slowly and looked at Adrian. Because I needed him to hear this from my mouth, not from Victor's lies. "Do you know what you're asking me to sign?" I asked. Adrian's eyes flicked to Victor, then back down. "They said it's standard." "It's not," I said. Victor's voice sharpened. "Calvin," I held up one finger without raising my voice. "This document includes a transfer of control over my home, power of attorney over my medical decisions, and consent to evaluate my mental capacity." Silence hit the table like a dropped plate. A couple of guests blinked, confused. Kristen went still. Diane's smile stopped working. Kyle's phone didn't lower, but his grin vanished. Victor stared at me, his expression hardening into something honest for the first time all night. "You're making it sound ugly," he said. "I'm reading what it says," I replied. Under the table, Jackson's hand found my sleeve again, shaking. And above the table, my son sat frozen, trapped between the people who owned his life right now and the father who raised him until he turned 18. Victor leaned in, voice low enough to feel like a threat. "Midnight, Calvin. We do this at midnight." I met his eyes and answered just as quietly. "No." The moment I said no, the temperature at the table changed. Kristen didn't argue yet. Victor didn't explode. They did something worse. They acted like I'd embarrassed myself. Diane sighed, loud and theatrical. "Calvin," she said, "you're upset. Let's not do this in front of everyone." Kyle's phone tilted up to catch my face. He wanted the clip, the stubborn old man losing it. Jackson pushed his chair back an inch. His eyes were locked on mine. He didn't speak, but I saw the decision forming in his little shoulders. Kristen stood and pointed toward the hallway like she was directing traffic. "Jackson, go upstairs and wash your hands," she said. "Now." Jackson looked at her, then at me. I stood. "I'll go with him," I said. Kristen's smile tightened. "He can handle a sink, Grandpa." "I'm washing my hands too," I replied. I kept my tone flat. Polite nothing Kyle could twist into a threat. Victor watched me like a guard watching a gate. "Don't be long," he said. Jackson moved first. I followed him up the stairs, one step behind, my eyes scanning for Kyle's phone. I heard Kyle's chair scrape, like he wanted to trail us. And then Diane's voice, soft but firm, pulled him back. "Let them go," she said. "It's fine." The upstairs hallway was quiet and spotless. Jackson didn't head to the nearest bathroom. He walked fast to the one at the end, closed the door, and turned the lock the second I stepped inside. Then he turned to me, breathing hard, and pulled a small device from the front pocket of his hoodie, an old phone or recorder, scuffed and cheap, the kind adults stop noticing. "Grandpa," he whispered, "I have it." "Have what?" I asked, even though my gut already knew. He tapped the screen with shaking fingers. "Listen." A recording started, muffled at first, like it had been captured from inside a pocket. Then the voices sharpened. Victor's voice, calm, certain. "Tonight is simple," Victor said. "One signature. If he won't sign, we use the backup." Diane laughed quietly. "Kyle's ready. He'll get the clip." Kyle's voice cut in, excited. "I can make him look drunk in 30 seconds. Then Kristen, cold, impatient. "I don't want him around Jackson anymore. He thinks he owns Adrian because he raised him. He needs to learn his place." Victor answered like he was discussing a contract. "We cut Calvin out and the family stabilizes. Adrian stops running back to him. Jackson stops looking to him. One generation. Clean break." My stomach twisted. Jackson swallowed and tapped the next clip like he'd practiced this, like he'd been waiting for a safe moment to show me. Victor again, lower this time. "If he doesn't sign, we file the petition. We paint him as unstable. We request supervised visitation only. No unsupervised time with the child. The court will grant it if we show concern and a pattern." Diane added, soft and sweet, like she was talking about school supplies. "He's older. We'll mention confusion, mood swings, alcohol, anything." Kyle laughed. "And we'll have video." The recording ended. The bathroom felt smaller. Jackson's eyes were wet, but he held himself together like he'd been doing it for weeks. "They said it would be easy," he whispered. "They said you'd get mad and everyone would see. I crouched in front of him. I kept my voice steady, short, usable. "When did you record that?" "At Grandma Diane's house," he said quickly. "Last week. They were talking in the kitchen and I put this under the couch pillow because I couldn't sleep. I heard my name. My jaw tightened." "Did they see you?" He shook his head hard. "No. But Mom found papers yesterday. She told Dad not to tell you." "Papers?" I asked. Jackson dug into his hoodie again and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, creased like he'd hidden it all night. He handed it to me with both hands like it weighed 100 pounds. Across the top were words that didn't belong in a kid's world. Emergency petition, temporary protective order. Request for supervised visitation only. My eyes went straight to the section with my name, then to the lines underneath. Grandfather exhibits unpredictable behavior, possible substance abuse, threats and intimidation, risk of abduction, request no contact without parental supervision. They weren't trying to keep me from signing a document. They were trying to erase me. I looked up at Jackson. "Did they tell you anything?" He nodded, tears finally slipping out. "Mom said if you don't sign, they'll tell people you're dangerous, that you tried to take me." His voice cracked. "Grandpa, I don't want to lose you." I took a slow breath through my nose. Not for me, for him. I wiped one tear off his cheek with my thumb and kept my face calm, because panic would scare him more than the truth. "Listen to me," I said. "They want a story." Jackson sniffed. "What do we do?" "3 things," I said, clear and simple. "You stay in my sight. You don't take food or drinks from anyone's hand. And if anyone starts yelling, you go to the front door under the porch light and you wait where people can see you." He nodded hard. I took a photo of the petition with my phone. Then I nodded at the recorder. "Keep that hidden. That's your shield." Jackson wiped his face fast. "Okay." I unlocked the door and cracked it open, listening. From downstairs, I heard Kyle's laugh and Diane's voice floating up like perfume. "Where are they?" Kyle said. "He better not be plotting." Diane chuckled. "If Calvin's upset, he'll show it. He always does." Jackson looked at me, terrified. I put a hand on his shoulder, firm, steady. "We go down," I said. Normal faces, normal steps. We walked out together, and as we started down the stairs, I knew exactly what their endgame was now. If I signed, they'd take my house. If I didn't, they'd take my grandson away from me on paper by painting me as unstable and forcing every minute I spent with him to happen under their control. When we reached the bottom step, Kyle was already half standing, phone up, ready to catch whatever unstable looked like. Diane smiled too wide. "There you are," she said. "Everything okay, Calvin? You look pale." "I'm fine," I answered. Simple, boring, not a headline. I guided Jackson to sit beside me close enough that my elbow could touch his without looking like I was pulling him. Kristen's eyes narrowed at the new seating arrangement. Victor's gaze flicked to the clock, then back to my hands. He slid the folder toward me again. "Let's not waste the night," he said. I opened it, not to negotiate, just to define the room. Kyle's camera hovered at my left like a drone. I tapped the first page and read clearly, slow enough for the phone microphone to catch every syllable. "Clause 1, I said. "Transfer of management rights regarding the property at my home address." I looked up and made sure I had eyes, guests, neighbors, anyone within earshot. "That means control of my house moves to a third party. Not advice, not help, control." Victor's jaw tightened. Kristen shifted in her seat. I turned the page and placed my finger on the next section. "Clause 2, I continued. "Medical power of attorney, effective immediately upon signature." I lifted my eyes again. "That means the moment I sign, someone else can make medical decisions for me. Tonight." Diane's smile froze for half a second before she forced it back. Kyle muttered, "You're twisting it," but his phone stayed locked on my face. I flipped once more and pointed to the line they were counting on most people not understanding. "Clause 3, I said. "Consent to capacity evaluation." I didn't add speeches. I just said what it meant. "That means I'm agreeing to be evaluated for mental fitness so someone can later claim I'm not competent to manage my own life." I closed the folder and set it flat on the table, palms open, as if I was done with it. Then I turned slightly toward Kyle's camera on purpose because I wanted my words inside their own footage. I'm going to say this clearly, I said, calm voice, steady hands. I'm sober. I have not consumed alcohol. I am not touching anyone. I am refusing to sign any document involving my property, my medical authority, or my mental capacity without independent legal counsel present. Kyle blinked. That wasn't the clip he wanted. Kristen leaned forward, voice sharp. You're making a scene. No, I said. I'm preventing one. Victor tried to regain control with a softer tone. Calvin, no one's threatening you. We're offering structure. Then it can wait, I replied. Structure doesn't need a midnight deadline. That landed. A couple of guests glanced at each other. One man near the doorway stopped laughing and listened. Diane changed tactics immediately, reaching for the wine bottle. Here, she said loudly, pouring into my glass without asking, like it was already decided. A sip will calm you down. I slid the glass away with 2 fingers. I didn't touch her hand. I didn't snap. Stop pouring, I said, still calm. You're doing that to create a story. Kyle's phone wobbled slightly, like he wasn't sure where to aim. I shifted my chair back half an inch and raised my voice just enough to carry not a shout, a statement designed for witnesses. For anyone listening, I said, I came here to spend New Year's Eve with my son and grandson. I'm being pressured to sign legal paperwork during dinner. I'm declining. I'm staying calm. And I'm leaving with Jackson only if he chooses to come with me, in full view of everyone. That sentence was the frame. It turned their planned abduction accusation into something they'd have to explain because I'd just announced my intent in front of witnesses. Jackson's hand found my sleeve under the table again, shaking less now. Victor stared at me, his smile gone. Kyle kept filming, but his eyes looked uncertain. And above us, the clock kept moving toward midnight, while I forced the entire room to see what was happening before anyone could cut the video to lie. Victor watched the room shift, and I could see him decide. If he couldn't win clean, he'd win loud. Diane stood again, bottle in hand. Calvin, she said, voice sweet but raised. You're trembling. Please, just drink a little. I'm not trembling, I answered. And I'm not drinking. She leaned in like she was helping, and then tipped the bottle, spilling red wine across the table edge and onto my sleeve. Oh my God, Diane gasped, performing for the room. He's making a mess, Calvin. You've had enough. Kyle's phone snapped closer, hunting the stain like it was proof. Kristen stood up fast. Dad, stop, she said, loud enough for witnesses. You're drunk. You're scaring Jackson. I'm not drunk, I said, keeping my hands open, away from everyone. She spilled that. Diane clutched her chest. He's accusing me now. This is exactly what I meant. He's not stable. Kyle turned and shouted toward the living room. Phone still filming. Everybody look. He's losing it. I didn't give them the explosion. I stood slowly and looked at Jackson. Buddy, I said, calm. Front door. Porch light. Jackson slid off his chair, eyes wide. Kristen lunged and grabbed his wrist. No, you are not taking my child anywhere. Kyle raised his voice like a siren. He's trying to take the kid, call 911. Diane started crying on cue. He's kidnapping him. Jackson froze, pain flashing on his face where Kristen gripped too hard. I didn't pull. I didn't tug. I stepped back half a pace and raised both hands higher. I'm not touching anyone, I said clearly. Jackson can choose where he stands. Kyle was already dialing, speaking loudly into his phone. Yes, we need police. An older man is intoxicated and trying to remove a child from the home. From the corner of my eye, I saw Adrian's face collapse, like the lie had gotten too big to hold. Then the front door opened and cold air rushed in. Police! A man's voice called out. Who called? Officer Reyes stepped inside, scanning the room in one sweep. Kyle's phone dipped. Diane's crying hiccuped. Victor's posture shifted into polite control. Reyes looked straight at me. Cal, you okay? I'm sober, I said. I haven't had a drop. They're pressuring me to sign legal documents, and now they're trying to claim I'm unstable. Reyes crouched to Jackson's level. Hey, bud, you hurt? Jackson pointed at his wrist, then said quietly. Kristen, Reyes said, voice firm. Let go of his arm. Now, Kristen hesitated. Victor started to speak. Reyes cut him off with a glance. Kristen released Jackson. Jackson stepped to my side on his own. And that's when Adrian broke. "Stop," he blurted, stepping forward, voice cracking. He looked at Reyes, then at me. "They've been forcing this all night. The folder, everything. They said if Dad doesn't sign, they'll file papers to keep him from seeing Jackson. They wanted video to make him look drunk." Kristen's face went white. Victor's eyes went hard. Reyes straightened, gaze locking on the folder. "I want to see those documents," he said, and in the sudden silence, the clock kept ticking toward midnight, except their plan had just spilled out in front of a uniform. Reyes held the folder open and looked at me. "Do you have an attorney?" "I do." I called Mina Park, my estate and family lawyer, and put her on speaker. Mina didn't waste a word. "Calvin, don't sign under pressure. Not tonight. Not ever." She continued, crisp and final. "Any signature obtained through coercion can be challenged and voided. Leave now with your grandson in full view of the officer." I did. Jackson walked beside me under the porch light, not pulled choosing. 1 month later, Mina locked my documents down, updated my will, and shut the visitation threat down with Reyes' report and Jackson's recording. Adrian moved out. Jackson stayed with me until the dust settled and slept through the night again. If you've ever been told sign to keep the peace, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what happened. Subscribe for more true family stories because love without boundaries isn't love, it's a trap.